Hi, this is Ralph from the Prineville Chess Club. In this video, I'm not going to play a game, but I did want to show you something I do use for my study, for my practice, chessbook.com, which some of you may have heard of it before. So I just played a game in chess.com. I'm referring to chessbook.com, but I played a game in chess.com, and that game ended up being a draw. But I want to go into Chessbook now to see what it suggested for fixes in my opening. So I'm going to head over to a new browser tab. I think this will work, chessbook.com. And I need to change out. Let's see if this is going to work here. There we go. Just had to update my OBS settings for this. I haven't done this on camera before. So this is chessbook.com, and you can sign up for free. I do the paid version. It's not much. It's like $50 a year. And if you sign up, I don't get any credit for it or anything like that. So it's not a paid endorsement or anything. I think it's worth checking out. And basically, a couple things you can do. You use it to build up your opening repertoire, but it's not like those repetition websites, like Chess Reps and Chessable and stuff like that, where you just drill over and over on the same opening. This uses a technique, and I think a few sites do this, spaced repetition. And so based on the settings you have, you build up a repertoire for the moves you want to play as white or black in various situations. And I'll show you a little bit of that on my end in just a moment. And then it'll parse out and give you practice moves to make on a daily basis. And sometimes they might be repeats of things that you've missed in the prior day or days, or they could be things that you haven't seen in a while, that you haven't practiced in a while, to see if you've actually remembered them and have retained those. And once you do correct moves for a while, it'll stop showing you those moves, and then maybe months will pass before it shows them to you again. But it can be pretty interesting. Now, the other feature that I like on it is you can connect it to your chess.com account and your Lichess account. So I just played that game in chess.com. It was a rapid game, and Chessbook will look at the rapid and blitz games that I play on either of those services. And when I sign into Chessbook after playing that one or many games or several days of games, I'll see, great, it says correct your opening mistake. So basically in my recent game, I made a mistake. I made multiple mistakes, of course, but I made a mistake in an opening which was part of my repertoire of study. And it's going through that opening right now. And it says, in this position in your game against same old workout, you played knight f6. Yes, so I played knight f6, which was not the move that I have added to Chessbook as to be part of my repertoire. So I could have done something better. Now the thing is, I don't know if I know what the better move is. So I study this position. I know that knight f6 was not the ideal move for me. So I need to think, well, what is the better move in this particular situation? Now, and you know what? This is not the game that I just played, actually. This might be the game that I played yesterday, and I haven't gone into Chessbook yet to fix this. I'm trying to, wait a minute, we didn't do a Caro-Kann. I did a King's Indian defense in the most recent game. And this kind of points out actually a good feature. This is a, it stores the mistakes that you make in your opening for multiple days and multiple accounts. And great, so now I'm getting this, and I can see, oh, okay, this is a Caro-Kann defense. I played knight f6, and no, that is not the ideal move. What I think, and I can't draw arrows here normally, I think, but I think probably the better move is going to be queen c7 or queen b6, opening up an attack on that b2 pawn if white moves their bishop. So I'm going to move queen b6 and see if that's the move. That's an okay move, but it's not the move that's part of my repertoire. Okay, well, I know it's not knight f6 because that was the wrong thing to do. Let me try queen c7. I think sometimes I do that in the Caro-Kann. That's an okay move, but still not the best move. Now, if the move is just not coming to you, you can say, I don't know, show me the answer. Or I can say, skip this move. I meant to play it. I was trying something new in that particular game. But I wasn't trying something new in this particular game. I was trying to play, based on what I've been practicing and studying and thinking about. But the best answer is still eluding me. Now, clearly I need to develop. So developing a bishop is good. Now, I know in a lot of Caro-Kann positions, you often go ahead and trade off this knight with your bishop. So that could be the ideal here. So that way you kind of take away some forward movement from their knight. So what if the best move is for me to do bishop takes? And that gets the green check mark. And bishop takes f3 is the way to go. Got it. Continue practicing. Now, in this set of games, I only had one mistake that I needed to review, but I've certainly have done this after playing multiple games, and maybe I'll have 3 or 4 mistakes to review. And hopefully, as you practice more, you get going there. Now, you could be thinking, but Ralph, that bishop takes f3, that's not what I practiced. That's not what I've seen to be the best move. And you're right, it may not be. That was the best move for me for what I wanted to play. And you program, for lack of better words, you program Chessbook with the openings and moves that you want to play. So let me give you a little bit of insight on that. I'm just going to go ahead and click continue. I'm done with that phase of the engagement. So in my Chessbook, I've built up a white repertoire and a black repertoire. I'm going to go to white. And I'm just going to click on Browse Edit Move. So now it says 100% complete. That means I've put in 100% of the variations I'm likely to see. You tell Chessbook what your rating is. Do you want to practice moves that you might see in 1 in 150 games, 1 in 200 games, 1 in 300 games? Are you trying to be tournament ready? That kind of stuff. So basically, I've programmed it in with 100% of the moves I'm likely to see at my rating level within 300 chess games. So that part is complete, but notice it only says 46% mastered. I am still practicing over and over. So I still need to get better at this. So I've got lots of room to grow here. I'm going to click on Browse Edit Moves. This is my white repertoire. And all of my white moves are based off of King E4. I don't have anything other than starting with E4. My thought process here is, let me get what I consider to be really good at just E4 and most of Black's responses. So all of these lines you see are simply Black's responses to my E4 move. Are they going to play the Caro-Kann, the French, the Italian, modern, Philidor, Sicilian? And if the Sicilian, which variety? They can do the Alpin, the Central Exchange with E6, Grand Prix attack, and things like that. And I usually build up the Black responses to my E4 move after games that I've seen. So, boy, I've seen a number of players, especially in tournaments, play the French defense. So let me add that in. And so, I click on the French defense and I say, okay, choose a move to prepare for. And we go through a standard set of moves and we say, okay, in 1 in 34 games, Black is likely to play knight f6. In 1 in 77 games, Black is likely to play f5. I can choose show more, but I see these other moves by Black are rare or dubious or perhaps even blunders. So I'm not training myself. I'm not training up on Black's very rare moves, at least not yet. If I start seeing knight c6, a few times in tournaments and games, I might say, you know what? I know it's rare, but I need to prepare more for that kind of response. Instead, in this particular position, I'm only prepared for knight f6 or f5. So, okay, what if my opponent plays knight f6, a very common Black move? Okay, well, now I can put in my response, and this is where you can select as well. And let me hit add an alternate move. So before I chose my response, f3, Chessbook gave me these 4 common moves, f3, c3, knight e2, g3. And I look at them and I say, well, gee, what are the masters playing? Well, the pros are usually playing f3. So that gives it some value, that gives it some weight. So I strongly consider that. But then I also look at the peer results. Hey, With f3, white tends to win 54% of the time, compared to c3, white wins only 52% of the time. Okay, so I consider those particular things. I also look at, well, what is f3? What is its impact on the evaluation bar? It actually gives black an advantage, a -1 advantage, whereas c3 gives a -0.6 advantage. I do factor that in, but I give a little bit more weight to the master's suggested moves and the pure results of making that move. Now, you could be thinking, great, let me plug in all of these. And you can, by the way. You can, hey, I might respond with F3, I might respond with C3, I might respond with the rare 92, or even that G3. But what I found, and I've made that mistake in the past, is it gives me so many things to practice that when I'm faced with that position, it's tough for me to remember, crap, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to play F3, C3, 92? What are the ramifications of all of those things? So again, I've got lots of time and lots of room for improvement. So I'm going with the philosophy, you know what? I'm going to pick one white response because I'm white in these games, in this repertoire, so I get to control that. So based on this situation, I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to be playing F3. And then it says, okay, great. Black is very likely to respond with E takes F3, so that's what I've prepared for. So I've gone through this and, and I don't do it all in one sitting. I do this over weeks, maybe even over a couple of months. I build up this repertoire based on games that I've played and based on some YouTube videos. I'll watch a YouTube chess streamer and they're playing, let's say it's Will Taylor Chess, and he likes the Mangarini Sicilian. And I'm watching his videos, and I say, oh boy, that's an interesting variety of the Sicilian. So if I'm black and I want to play the Sicilian, I might play the Mangarini Sicilian. And I've programmed in those moves so that I can kind of practice and study them based on the most likely positions that I'm going to see from white in that particular matter. So what I'm doing here for white, I can jump back over here, and it's the same thing for black. Let me go to, here's a good example, by the way. Notice my black repertoire is only 97% complete. That means there's some moves that I still need to fill in. Not in any time pressure to do that. I can do it later. I still have room to grow. But let me go to continue building for a minute. And notice, as a black player, I am only preparing myself for E4 and D4. That's it. I know occasionally players might do something a little bit more rare. They might bring a knight out, which I think is like the Reti opening or something. But in those situations, I'm going to assume that I can play some logical moves and it will transition to something that I'm more familiar with, which is often the case, by the way. But you can see in this listing over here from my black repertoire that I've got some responses to E4, including the Caro-Kann and including the Mangarini, even though it doesn't seem to list it on here. They just give it a slightly different name, I believe. But I also have some preparation for D4. Again, I don't have a lot of responses to D4. I play the Dutch or the Indian defense. Those are my two things. So this probably isn't great for masters. Masters need to know a whole bunch of openings and things like that so that they can throw new things at their opponents. I am not at that level. I'm a 1700 rapidchess.com. USCF, I'm about 1400. And at my skill level and the opponents I tend to see, I'm still doing pretty good with these very limited opening repertoires. So perfectly fine with that. I'll just get better at them. Okay, so I say, all right, that's kind of the things that I need to prepare for or add to. And if I feel like I've mastered these and I need to start being trickier and throw something new at my opponent, then I'll look at a new response, a new move, things like that. So yeah, so you can keep building up your repertoire. And then on a daily basis, I play practice moves, and there's a few settings you can change with your practice moves, but basically it's going to go through all of your repertoire moves. And let's say you're going 5, 10, 11 moves deep into a position. That's pretty much as deep as it goes at my level. You say, okay, what are my responses to this? Oh, here's a perfect example. Now, this is one of the situations where, okay, white has played E4, and I can respond in a number of different ways. So however, what I've programmed in, I've only got one programmed response to E4. So if you're playing me OTB and you play E4, my response is going to be C6, the Caro-Kann. That's the move that I go, and then it gives me another move. Okay, well, in this particular position, I play D5, check mark. Okay, now in this position, I sometimes do one of two different things. I might bring my bishop out, and that got a check mark. But this is one of those situations where I actually do a couple of different responses. There are a few times where I broaden instead of just having only one response or one move. I might have a couple things I try. So yeah, so sometimes I'll do bishop f5, bring that bishop out of the pawn chain so that I can close off with e6 later on. Or sometimes I'll bring the queen out right away. Oh, that's just okay. That is not my move. So crap, what is my other move? Oh, my other move. See, this is why I need to practice. This is why I still have a lot of learning to go. It could be go ahead and pushing c5. Yeah, that's the other move. And by the way, when you make these moves, and if you forget your own moves or make mistakes or need to give some rationale, you can customize these annotations in here. So some of these were provided by Chessbook. Others I go in and I edit, I modify, and I write them out in a better way for me to understand. So if I'm forgetting, oh crap, I forgot, yeah, I pushed that c5 pawn, immediately pressuring the white center, black will likely follow up with knight c6 to increase the pressure on the center. And then, of course, then I can also say, yeah, I'm going to, after this move, at some point, I want to put my knight there on c6 behind that pushed pawn. And that's a common theme in a number of openings. Push the pawn, the F or C pawn first so that you can get the knight behind it. So yeah, clearly I need to remember that. And I can say, all right, fine, I've got it, continue practicing. And it's going to keep track up here in the top right corner. It's going to keep track of how many are in my practice session. It's going to keep track of the ones I get right and the ones I get wrong. Now, the ones I get wrong, it's going to serve them up to me again. Before I am done with this practice session, it's going to loop around and it's going to give me this same position again to see if I remember it. It's a little embarrassing to admit, but I sometimes have to go through a couple of iterations on those missed moves. It doesn't repeat all of them. Once you get it right, it checks it and it moves it off the list for that session. But there are some positions where even though I know them and I see the logic, for some reason it doesn't quite sit in. I need a lot of repetition to take things in. I might be a couple years older than some of you watching, but yeah, it takes a little bit more time, a little bit more repetition, but it's kind of a fun way to go. And this actually is kind of fun for me. I often play this on my iPad, my tablet. There's an app you can install. You can play it on your phone. There's an app you can install on your phone, Android, iOS, whatever. But sometimes I can just play it on my desktop computer and things like that. You just get into your account and make those moves. Build up the repertoire over time to things that you're seeing and things you want to play. And then, yeah, spaced repetition. Just a little bit of practice every day. Now, the one drawback is not really a drawback to Chessbook, but it's my own study practices. I probably spend too much time focused on openings, and I don't spend enough time on middle game tactics and end games. Now, that doesn't mean I want to reduce the amount of time I spend on my openings, but I do want to definitely increase the amount of time that I spend on tactical vision and in-game play, which Chessbook does not, that's not its purpose. You know, for tactical vision, you might be doing chess puzzles on Lichess or chess.com. For in-game, play more in-games, obviously, but also perhaps more in-game puzzles and lessons on one of the websites that you go to frequently and stuff like that. But for opening moves and building a repertoire that makes sense to you, but is also good and respected by, you know, the top players, I think Chessbook is a good way to go. Like I said, it's not a paid endorsement. If you get it, there's no code. I don't have a discount code for you, but I think it's pretty good, and I think it's worth checking out. And the paid version is like $50 a year, which I definitely get my money's worth out of it. Take care.